So, can you believe it? After more than 50 years, humanity is finally going back to the moon. But hold on, this isn't just Apollo 2.0. We're not talking about a quick visit here. This is Artemis. And it's a whole new playbook for how we're going to live and work in deep space. And really, it all goes back to a promise that was made a long, long time ago.
Those were literally the last words a human being spoke while standing on the moon. And for over half a century, nothing. That promise just kind of hung there in space. You know, you can almost picture it. The footprints, the flags, all that gear, just sitting there, waiting in total silence. Well, the wait is over.
And this right here, this slide nails the biggest difference. You got to think of Apollo as a sprint, right? It was a race, pure and simple. Get there, plant the flag, win the Cold War, done. Artemis? It's a marathon. The whole point isn't just to go back, it's to stay. To build a permanent base, figure out how to live out there, and use the moon as, well, a training ground for the main event, sending people to Mars. Okay, so how are we actually going to pull this off? Well, it all starts with Layer 1, the ride to the moon. We're talking about the most powerful rocket ever built, and the spaceship that's basically a deep space lifeboat for the crew. So, say hello to the Space Launch System, or SLS for short, and just look at that number. 8.8 million pounds of thrust. To put that in perspective, that's 1.3 million pounds more than the legendary Saturn V from the Apollo days. This thing is an absolute monster. We're talking about an incredible amount of raw power. All right, let's peek under the hood of this beast. It stands 322 feet tall, taller than the Statue of Liberty. And all that power comes from two giant solid rocket boosters. You know, the big white tubes on the side, plus 4 RS-25 engines at the bottom. But here's the really cool part. Those engines, they're not brand new. They're actually refurbished veterans from the Space Shuttle program. So there's this direct connection, this piece of history powering the future. It's pretty amazing.
But, and this is a huge but, all that power comes with a crazy expensive price tag. You see, unlike the reusable rockets we see today, the SLS is a one-and-done deal. It's completely expendable. That means those incredible engines, the entire giant orange tank, all of it just gets dumped in the ocean after one use. This drives the cost of a single launch up to, wait for it, $2 to $4 billion. Yeah, a lot of people are saying there's just no way that's sustainable in the long run.
Okay, so perched right on top of that giant rocket is the Orion capsule. This is where the astronauts will live for the journey. And man, you can really see how far we've come since Apollo. It's way bigger, it can carry 4 astronauts instead of 3, and it can stay out in deep space on its own for more than 21 days. It's not just a ride, it's a genuine deep space survival craft. But the first test flight, Artemis I, which was uncrewed, thank goodness, uncovered a really serious issue. When Orion came screaming back through the atmosphere, its heat shield got chewed up way more than anyone expected. We're talking over 100 spots where the material just charred and flaked away unexpectedly. And when you're talking about bringing astronauts home at 25,000 miles per hour, the heat shield is the one thing that absolutely positively cannot fail. So yeah, this is probably the #1 problem NASA has to fix before anyone straps into this thing. Okay, so let's say the SLS and Orion work perfectly. The crew makes it all the way to lunar orbit. Now what? How do they get from way up there down to the dust? Well, that's where the second layer of this whole grand plan kicks in. This is Layer 2, the Lunar Base Camp. And this is all about the hardware that's going to be waiting for them at the moon, like a little harbor in orbit, and the shuttle that takes them down to the surface. And this is the centerpiece, the Lunar Gateway. The best way to think about it is like a small space station, a command post, or a harbor orbiting the moon. It's going to be in this really unique long looping orbit that gives it a great view of both the lunar South Pole and Earth, which is perfect for communication. It's the staging point, the anchor for everything that happens at the moon. And to get from that gateway harbor down to the surface, they'll use this, the Starship Human Landing System, or HLS, from SpaceX. Now, this is important. This is not the Starship that launches from Texas. This is a special, stripped-down version, 50 meters tall, that's designed only to operate in space. It'll be launched ahead of time and will be parked in lunar orbit, just waiting for the crew to arrive on Orion. Okay, but getting that giant lander to the moon is honestly maybe the craziest, most complicated part of this whole thing. It can't get there on its own, it needs to be refueled in space, and we've never done anything like this before. So check this out.
First, they launch a giant gas tank, a propellant depot, into Earth orbit. Then, they have to launch between 10 and 15 separate tanker flights to fill up that depot. Then, the depot fills up the lunar Starship, and only then can the lander finally fire its engines and head to the moon. It's this insane multi-step orbital ballet where every single step has to be perfect.
All right, so they've made it. They're on the surface. Now what? You can't just walk around in your t-shirt. This brings us to layer 3, working on the surface. We're getting down to the human level now, talking about the gear they'll need to actually do their jobs.
And here it is, the XEMU spacesuit. This thing is a quantum leap over the old Apollo suits. You know how the Apollo guys kind of hopped around like stiff bunnies? Well, this suit has joints that let you actually bend at the waist and twist your hips. You can literally just bend down and pick up a rock. It's also designed to fight off that superfine, super abrasive lunar dust that gets into everything. And it can handle the insane cold. We're talking minus 280 degrees Fahrenheit in the deep shadows. Oh, and get this, for a little bit of high-tech flair, some of the materials expertise came from the fashion house Prada. No, I'm not kidding.
So, the whole plan is amazing, right? It's this grand vision for the future. But space is hard. It's incredibly unforgiving. So now it's time for a reality check. We need to look at the tough parts, the challenges, the money, and the inevitable delays.
And the first reality is the sticker shock. The estimated cost to get us through just the first landing is over $93 billion. I mean, just look at this chart. That first bar, just for developing the rocket and the capsule, is almost $50 billion by itself. We are talking about one of the most expensive things humanity has ever tried to do.
And it's not just about the money. The engineering hurdles are huge. You've got the Orion heat shield issue we talked about. You have to prove that insane 15-launch refueling dance for Starship can actually work. You've got to build gear that won't get torn apart by lunar dust or freeze solid in the shadows. And all the while, you've got that giant multi-billion-dollar per-launch cost hanging over everything.
So what's the result of all these challenges? Delays. The plan has changed. The mission that was supposed to be the first landing, Artemis 3, is now just going to be a test flight in Earth orbit. The actual landing has been pushed back to Artemis 4, sometime around 2028 if all goes well. They're basically adding more steps to the ladder to try and reduce the risk.
Okay, so you're probably thinking, with all this money, all this risk, all these delays, why are we even doing this? And the answer is pretty simple. Artemis was never really just about the moon. The moon is the dress rehearsal. It's the ultimate proving ground for our next giant leap.
Think about it. Every single part of this plan is practice for Mars. Living on the Gateway for long periods, that's like the long trip to Mars. Figuring out how to mine ice on the moon and turn it into water and rocket fuel, you have to be able to do that on Mars. Learning how to shield astronauts from years of deep space radiation, that's a Mars-level problem. The moon is where we go to figure all this stuff out before we bet people's lives on a trip to another planet.
So, at the end of the day, Artemis isn't some nostalgia trip to relive the glory days of Apollo. It's an audacious, unbelievably complicated, and yes, monumentally expensive bet. It's a bet on our own future. A bet that we're not meant to just stay circling a few hundred miles above the Earth. It's a bet that our destiny is actually out there, among the stars. And that grand journey, it all starts by going back to the moon.